You got this and you got that, and you gonna murder this one and murder that one. Talking all that bullshit. I'm gonna put it to you like this, yo.
This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me. I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What is poppin', everybody? And welcome back to another special episode of the Only Friends podcast. Well, you know, it's me and my only friends, which includes, but is not limited to, Mr. Hunt. What's poppin' with you today? How you feeling?
Hey, Con, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm chilling, baby. You know, another day in life.
I'm enjoying the fact it's not 100 degrees anymore outside.
Oh, you can go outside now.
I can go outside. It's my October is my outside time of year.
What a sick part is, though, like, even when you go outside, you have to wear a hat.
Yeah, well, this is more just due to the fact that I haven't shaved my head lately and I'm looking very bald recently. So this is just hiding the.
You have to put a sweater on.
Yeah,
tomorrow.
exactly. The sweaters are coming soon, but
68 degrees.
The hat for now is just covering the baldness.
Hunt Shaq Harris.
Strong analogy.
Yeah, Brandon's kind of known for the beanie, isn't he? It's kind of his thing. I don't want to take that trademark.
Nobody
from him.
has seen him without the beanie.
When did he start that? I know I've asked him this, and
He's like a teenager.
He's answered me, and I don't really recall. Which means that like the answer he gave me wasn't satisfying. You know, like because if it was satisfying, I would be like, oh, that makes sense. I was just like, you know, just. Like hats.
Yeah, maybe at some point in his life he has like a horrific scar on his head or something, and he's just been covering that up the whole time.
You got to own that, man. In this industry, especially, like scars go a long way.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
A little intimidation.
Extra
He
fold
does
equity.
do a little bit of sparring. I've seen some videos.
He'll fuck you up.
He fights. Yeah. He's a fighter.
Yeah, he would get in the mix for sure. Have you? I don't know if you watched yesterday's episode or not, but have you laid any bets down on the election yet?
I haven't yet. I saw that Andrew was on yesterday as well. I haven't laid anything down. I really don't tend to bet on a lot of stuff besides poker, which would probably explain why I'm getting smashed in Weekend Warrior. But I don't usually consider myself too sharp on things outside poker, but it could be a good time to get some down. I don't know. We'll see.
Maybe we get a little election bet thrown into Weekend Warrior too.
Oh, yeah. I know how to take it.
Now we're going. I don't know, because like this might be the first week that I move off of betting the Steelers. I'm not happy with them.
You guys just had a great week, I thought.
Is it for sure that Russell is starting? That's pretty much the consensus now?
Seems to be the way things are trending. You know, Tomlin, he just won't name a starter, but Justin Fields came out and said he doesn't feel he's played well enough to have kept the starting job, and that he's in full support of Russ.
He's not played well enough.
He's played. Here's what
I think he's played just as good as Russ could play.
How can you say that if you haven't seen him play?
I've seen him play. I've seen him play a lot.
Not for the new squad, though, right?
Not for the new squad, which is
Russ can't cook.
Yeah.
Here's what I think everybody is not willing to acknowledge when making a quarterback change like this. The line is absolutely decimated. We are on like third stringers at guard. We might be on our third center if Frazier can't come back this week, which seems unlikely. Broderick Jones has not been doing well as right tackle at all. And Russ is 36 and immobile.
Right.
He's not old Russ. But what makes this even worse...
he's going to be able to just stand back there and,
Right. Right, which he's a pocket passer. We're not offering a pocket.
We don't have any wide receivers.
That's what makes this worse. He doesn't have people make it seem like Fields has just been not playing all that well. It's like, guy, he's throwing to fucking Pickens, and then like 3 guys off the practice squad that I've personally never heard of. Roman Wilson was supposed to get his first start against. I don't think he was on the field. I truly don't remember seeing him once. I might move off them this week. I mean, we got to go against Devontae now.
I know.
Team back up with Aaron.
Yeah, I got Justin Fields in my 2 quarterback league. Now I got to go. I can't just replace him with Russ. It doesn't work that way.
No, that's not a plug and play situation there.
Russell Wilson is not fantasy relevant where Justin Fields is.
Not first ballot Hall of Famer.
Probably not.
If anybody was,
but probably a Hall of Famer. I was going to say that. Is Russ a Hall of Famer?
You know, Pete Carroll might have cooked him.
Go on. He needed the second one?
All he had to do is give the ball to Marshawn Lynch.
That's true. Yeah, he
Pete
would have
Carroll
had two.
might have cooked them.
Yep.
That's true.
You don't pass on the Skittle eating beast.
Yeah. Then it'd be
Skittle eating Hennessy drinking beast.
Then it'd be first ballot right there with Eli.
Sure.
That is true. All right, we have our NAPT Gold Pass giveaway. I was nervous about this one. I wasn't sure that the sharps of the internet were gonna decode our little puzzle here. But lo and behold, a lot of people have it figured out. Today was the final clue. We put that
Our
up.
audience is smart.
They're sharp.
They're smart.
They're sharp. They got one more hurdle to overcome. So you're going to need to be a podcast listener in order to, well, not necessarily, but more than likely, you're going to need to be a podcast listener in order to get the final clue. But today was the final puzzle piece, which we put out on our Twitter page.
If they're not a podcast listener, they're not going to know that they need to be a podcast listener in order to get the final clue.
That's
you're
true.
announcing that on the podcast.
That's true.
How does that work? Never mind.
They'll figure it out whenever they hear the final clue.
They're going to get word of mouth.
This is the perks of everybody that is tuned in right now.
That's right.
Podcast listeners are going to tell the non-podcast listeners about the promotion, and then they're going to become podcast listeners.
Fuck the non-podcast listeners.
That's well, we'll figure that out when we get there, I guess. But anyway,
have we discovered a fatal flaw in the marketing here?
No.
Okay. You sounded like you were regretting something there for a second.
I don't care about non-podcast listeners.
Okay.
Not one bit. Also, like if they don't listen to the podcast, what's the likelihood that they're following _pod?
That's true.
Seems low.
Unlikely.
There are hidden clues within the podcast, but today's final puzzle piece was he was known for winning a prop bet of running 70 miles in 24 hours and also winning an NAPT event with this number of runners. What is that number of runners? So a little bit of a trick. A lot of people were answering Ashton Griffin, which is who the person was, but that has only enough relevance to get you to figure out what NAPT event he won and how many runners were in that field, because that's the final clue. And again, you podcast listeners will have a leg up because I just told you that. And I didn't say that in the thread. But it looks like a few people have already guessed it, figured it out, deciphered it, if you will. Don't know if anybody has answered the final clue correctly yet or not. We will be announcing that on Monday when we give away the final seat. Monday or tomorrow?
What? Tomorrow? Tomorrow's Friday?
Yeah.
We do it tomorrow.
Maybe we give it away tomorrow.
We do it tomorrow.
We have a packed Monday. We have Maria Konnikova calling in on Monday.
Awesome.
Yeah. We'll call it Free Shit Friday.
Free Shit Friday. I like that.
Okay, Free Shit Friday. All right, we'll be giving away the NAPT Gold Pass tomorrow, assuming somebody gets it right between today
Free
and
Seat
tomorrow.
Friday.
If nobody gets it correct between today and tomorrow, then we'll give it away on Monday. But I have a feeling one of you loyal listeners are going to get this one right. So
it's true.
Best of luck to everybody out there. Can't wait to see you at Resorts World for the NAPT main event. That's a $5,300 tournament. This is what you get with the Gold Pass. $5,300 buy into a tournament. You get 7 days at one of the best resorts in all of Las Vegas at Resorts World. $1,800 cold hard cash the second you arrive on property. I mean, what more could you ask for?
Right.
You know, you take that Spirit flight from wherever in the goddamn Midwest you are, get here for $163 round trip, and then you go gamble the remaining $1,617.
16 or $17.
No, I got the number correct. I just said it in a way that made it sound like I wasn't sure.
I mean, imagine $17 can get you a long way in Vegas.
Imagine if you just
Survivor Man Vegas. It's a game I want to play.
Yeah, imagine if you just lived in Vegas.
Free $1,800.
That's what I'm saying.
There you go, and a staycation.
Yeah.
What more could you ask
imagine
for?
showing up at a hotel and they just hand you $1,800. That's pretty good.
Right.
That never happens in Las Vegas.
Straight to the pit.
Right.
It's more like in Vegas. It's more like you show up at a hotel and they just take $1,800 from you immediately. They just take it out of your pocket.
Right.
That
as soon as you check in.
That feels more accurate.
Yeah.
I think. What have you been up to? I feel like we missed you last week. Is that right? You were sick?
Yeah, I was sick. I've been sick for like a week. I managed to catch food poisoning from bad Mexican food. So that was bad. That was not good. Not a good week. But
do you want to out the establishment?
I don't even remember the name, honestly. I just ordered takeout.
That's a
from
bad start.
I ordered takeout from a place I hadn't got it before. I was just like, this place looks fine, and regretted it. And it was weird because it wasn't like one of those times where you just feel like you're gonna die, but it was like I just had like a fluctuating fever for like 4 days, and it just wouldn't. It was like I just wouldn't get better. It was like I kept thinking I was getting better, and then I wouldn't get better, and it was just really annoying all week. So
I gotta tell you, this sounds way more like COVID than food poisoning.
I took a COVID test, and it was negative. And I most of the COVID symptoms I didn't have. Like I didn't have any shortness of breath. I wasn't coughing.
Yeah.
Like I had a bit of a sore throat, but I didn't have any like sinus symptoms at all. Or
Do you have
like
digestional issues?
A little bit, but not a ton. It was just like a fever. It was a fever for a few days on and off, and that was the weird part of it. I was just like sleeping all day and not getting anything done, and just like wake up and I'd be like, oh, I think I'm getting better now, and then 4 hours later I'm like, oh, I'm definitely not getting better.
But you're back now. You feeling good?
I'm back. Yeah,
good.
I'm all good. I'm feeling good. So I've been out of commission for a little while, but I'm all back to 100% now.
All right.
Man, it's getting to be that time of year, isn't it?
Yeah, I hope not. I don't want to get sick.
I feel like every December is just like a fucking nightmare out here.
Yeah,
like it's just inevitable.
I think everybody has to kind of take care around December because there's a lot of tournaments going on here in Vegas, but there's obviously everybody travels for the holidays, and it's just so easy to get sick around December. So I'm gonna have to be real careful out there for sure.
Wash your hands, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, wash those goddamn hands. Don't be gross. All right, we have a very strat-heavy episode today.
I'll take the lead.
That's right.
It's going to be tortoise strat. How to play.
So apparently, Mike McDonald just tweeted, "Could someone explain, like I'm 5, how this worked and what the answer was, and if it was possible to guess it?"
Yeah, I replied to him.
Oh, okay, I didn't see that.
It was very possible. Many people guessed.
Yeah.
And now here we are. Sorry, Mike. You snooze, you lose. If you were an avid podcast watcher, you probably would have gotten this one because you're a sharp individual. All right, so we're very strat heavy today. I wanted to talk about basically strategic adjustments on the fly, specifically when game dynamics change. So a lot of things that we're seeing happening in more let's call it modern poker is derivatives of the game that we're used to playing. So Squid Game comes to mind, which originated as stand-up game, which was kind of just like a once in a while type of thing. So stand-up game, for anybody who's not familiar, is everybody stands up. The last person to sit owes a penalty to everybody at the table. There have been many derivatives thereof this now. So there's the progressive Squid Game, in which case every pot that you win, you collect a bounty. And at the end, whoever is still standing owes all of the bounties. So it's not fixed to just one penalty per person. It's basically one penalty per pot won. There is there's a new version of stand-up game where you actually gamble thereafter for the bounties. So you play the stand-up game, the person loses, he pays the bounties equivalent to all of the players at the table, and it goes in the middle, and now you play a bomb pot.
Oh, that's cool.
That's interesting.
Which I kind of like that one.
I like that.
Yeah.
You give the loser a chance to get his money back.
Yeah.
And you create a little more action for one
it adds
final
a bomb
hand.
pot to the equation.
A little more action?
A little more.
I like that.
It seems like there's more. There's just like
solids.
every day or every week there's another like derivative of the.
We're creative bunch.
Right. Do you think that eventually someone's going to come up with something that's really good that's going to stick and it's going to be the standard? Or do you think they'll just keep a bunch of different ones and just keep popping around?
It's going to be Hold'em. It's just going to circle back to the norm.
Two blinds.
It's going to be
No
limit
ante.
Hold'em.
No
Everyone's going to be like,
straddle.
okay, we're gambling too much, guys. There's too much gambling going on. We've got to go back to playing limit Hold'em.
Always regress to the mean.
Yeah.
I think that is part of like adding a lot of these elements to the normal game is just seeing like how far the threshold of variance needs to go before the game kind of like comes full circle to not being that good again. I think regular stand-up is the best version. And maybe this version where you add the bomb pot afterwards, because nobody who wins the bounty cares, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why progressive began being a thing, because now if you're the most aggressive player and you win 6 or 7 or 8 pots, you might win, 50 or 60 big blinds in bounties.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's meaningful.
Yeah, it's just like there's like in the regular ones, there's just a loser. There's no real winner, right?
Yeah. The loss is very painful, but winning 3 big blinds
whatever
for all of the risk that you took on isn't really all that big of a compensation. The true compensation is not having to be the one who pays.
Like betting on a plus 800 team or something. That's no fun.
No, I think you mean a minus 800 team. That's no fun.
No, you're
risking a ton to win very little.
You're risking a ton. No, that would be if you bet on a plus 800 team, right?
Minus.
You'd be
plus 800.
Minus 800. Sorry, you're right.
Or a dog, rather.
No, yeah. I'm thinking in reverse. You're right.
Man, how am I losing Weekend Warrior?
I know, right? Yeah. Right.
Am I losing? I asked for the standings the other day to figure out my ICM situation, and no one answered. No one gave me the standings. Where am I? In the standings?
You have.
We're still in level 1 of this thing.
I know. $693.
Oh wow! Okay. Look at you, Hunt.
So who's at the bottom?
How does he have so much?
Gotta be.
It's Hanks for sure.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. I was trying to figure out if Hanks is still below me.
You passed me. Oh, this is not accurate. I do not have 946. This is very inaccurate.
Berkey, yeah, you lost 100 last week, right? You have 946. You had 1,046 the week before.
No.
Burke?
No.
1, 2.
I have $600. I can assure you. I've lost the last 2 weeks. I had $697.
My number went up instead of going down last week.
Oh, you know why? Because you did the numbers last week and didn't put them on the sheet. That's why.
Oh, don't let him blame 6 weeks. Guapo, I'm here. I stand with Guapo.
1, 2,
Listen,
3, 4,
I had to
5.
correct my own, and he gave. I was.
This is not your fault.
I was supposed to be down money.
So the problem is I don't know the other numbers. I don't know what the other.
Well, I can assure you this: I have $600.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Well, then I have more than what's on there because I won this week.
Oh, that's right. Because you bet 97. You bet the change. Remember?
Yeah.
Whatever you did last week is what's missing on that.
Yeah, I lost $300.
Oh, so
Yeah,
I'm even better off than that. I'm doing fine. I'm just not. I'm not at the top, but I'm.
No,
second
you're
from
not
last.
doing better than that. You're doing worse
You
because
lost-
you lost the week before.
Yeah, you did.
But the week before is the week that's missing?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I don't remember if I lost the week before. I think I did.
That makes sense because
if you were betting, you were losing.
Yeah.
I just won last week.
That was the first one.
No, it wasn't.
Really?
It was like the third one. I won two like ones where I bet a heavy favorite for not that much.
Oh, I just assumed you lost all of those.
1,800, 800 to 35.
I just assume you lose every week.
Yeah, that's what you all
two.
assume, but
You've won 2.
You can all shut the fuck up.
I thought that was the ongoing theme, was that you hadn't won a week.
Well, you built that theme yourself. You know, you guys have all invented that theme.
I mean, to be fair,
It's a fun theme.
To be fair, when you win 30,
Don't include me in that.
when you win,
Guapo's not been jumping on. He's not been piling on.
when you win $20, you know, we count it as a loss around here.
To be fair, Guapo won $17 and got the $100 bonus for the week because no one else in the league won.
You guys are like, oh, you win
congrats.
$20, it counts as a loss. Hanks is out here like betting 400 and losing, and you're not giving him any shit for it.
He's
like,
just
come on,
not
man.
here. Hanks is the worst at this game.
I'm only here once a week as well, and you still managed to give me a ton
But
of
you're
shit
here
for
right
it.
now.
Yeah, I'm here right now. I guess that's what
Right
counts,
now.
right?
Hanks has to be one of the worst at this particular game that I've ever. Like, he's the kid where you do the model stock market in like 11th grade, and he's just all in on some shit coin right away.
Penny stocks, baby. Let's go.
Amen.
It's just incredible. All right. So anyway, the topic at hand today that I wanted to discuss was how to deal with an ever-changing environment and adjusting your strategy. Because a lot of times you find yourself in these situations and you're not really privy to knowing that the game is going to go this particular way, and you want to be armed with some sort of methodology to adjust in real time. So I think Squid is a really obvious example of how to adjust. And we have a few examples that we can cut to in a bit from the recent Triton cash game that I think will be interesting. But I want to kick off with something that we've talked kind of casually about in the past, but with the fact that it's coming up again and the fact that I might be playing it, I wanted to discuss a little bit about the loose cannon strategy for the PokerStars big game. And this one in particular, I think, is pretty unique because there are a lot of strategic elements to it that may not be super obvious to anybody right away. First of which is the aspect of managing your $50,000 roll when it comes to risk and reward. So obviously, like, the downside risk of playing any pots whatsoever is losing them and being evicted from the show. So it's kind of like busting a tournament in that regard. And I think that that's maybe the parallel that we can most easily draw here. The upside, however, is that every dollar above the buy-in, you get to keep. And that seems asymmetric. Like,
Yeah.
being removed from the show, not that big of a deal, unless like you're really pumped about the TV time and stuff. But making cold hard cash in I think they play 200, 400, if I'm not mistaken. Was it 100 or
It
200?
was 100,
I think it was
100, 200?
100, 200.
Okay,
it was
100,
100.
Man, Keaton lost that much in 100, 200? God damn. It's going to be hard for me to compete with that. Okay, so yeah, in a 100, 200 game, if you're a winning player, even over the course of like a 250 hand sample, like you could run pretty hot and make a fair amount of cash here if we really get in there and gamble it up. So first question becomes, how would you go about managing risk and leveraging this free money that's afforded to you to try to convert into actual dollars that you get to take home?
I mean, I think when I had conversations about this with both Lily and Nikki before they went on the show to like help prepare them a little bit. And I think that one of the things that I was able to kind of hopefully get across a little bit is that it really comes down to, first of all, what your actual priorities are, right? Because one thing that Nikki talked about with me was that she was very conscious that this was a really good opportunity for exposure, right? This was a great opportunity to be out there in front of people for a period of time, in this kind of entertaining game environment that with the priorities that she had, she wanted to make sure that she made the most of the opportunity to just play in this game, and she didn't really want to bust early on because there's a lot to be gained from kind of just getting your face out there and having more episodes out there with you in them, as opposed to like you bust on the first hand and there's one episode of you and that's it, So Nikki and I talked about kind of that, balancing that priority against the money side of it. And then with Lily, obviously with Lily being less she's not so much in Nikki's vein of the sort of content creation side. So she was much more focused on just maximizing the EV of this opportunity. So the idea of staying in the game, or there being some implied value in staying in the game for longer and getting more exposure, was a little bit less relevant for her. So I think you always have to start out with your own personal priorities, because for some people, there are considerations that go beyond just how do you maximize the EV of it. But I think once you come to look at just the pure EV of it, you also have to even go beyond the game itself when it comes to the considerations of what it's going to do for your career. Because, for example, like for some people, there might be an asymmetric upside to, if you have a really big win, like there are things you can do with that bankroll now that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do. But for some people, if you already have a substantial bankroll, then the asymmetric upside of like a big win might not be as big, because most of the stuff that you would be doing with that money, you're probably still going to be able to do anyway, because you already have a decent sized bankroll.
I would imagine we should probably start with the assumption that the money matters to everybody involved, just because of the nature of the loose cannon and how they select them.
Yeah, I guess I'm just talking about it in the sense of, are you going to be playing, like grinding and playing a lot like Lily is, or are you maybe not going to be putting in as much volume, but taking certain specific opportunities and maybe targeting certain specific ways to get your content out there and things like that, in the way that Nikki was, right? Because Nikki's playing a lot of poker, but I think her priorities are different from what Lily's were. And there might have been, on top of that, there's personal considerations in terms of like, each person has a different opinion of, if someone handed you 100K today, what would you do with it, right? And so everybody's going to have a slightly different answer to that question. I think that when it comes to actually maximizing the EV of it, you have to then start thinking about your skill set as a player. And are you best placed to, let's say, if you do win a big pot early on and you're now suddenly playing 500 big blinds deep against these other players, do you have enough experience at that depth that you can maximize the value of that opportunity? Or is that opportunity actually going to be less valuable for you than it might be for some other people, because now you're not as experienced at that depth, and a lot of that money that you're now playing with is yours to take home if you just fold, right? So there's an asymmetric aspect to it there once you get up money. And I think there's always a balancing act that you're playing in this case, where you're evaluating the possible downside, which in a lot of cases here is zero, because if you're not up money, then the only thing that you're risking in any given hand is whatever the value of future hands would be. And then the upside is going to be if you're up money already, if you are, in a position where you're getting closer to the end of the gameplay, you have a higher chance of locking up that money and so on. So you really, I think, just have to keep an eye on each of the sides of the equation in terms of the upside and the downside, and just evaluate how they're balancing out against each other in any given situation.
Yeah, so I think that those two things are very much at odds and should be considered as two completely separate strategy entities, because the adjustments are obviously quite different, right? So when you have your 50K in front of you and you're making $0, your incentives are to take on risk, I believe. And I understand what you're saying with the difference between like Lily approaching it from a standpoint of this could be a big bankroll booster, and I am a poker player first and foremost, so therefore that's my number one incentive. Whereas for Nikki, it's like I'm a content creator, getting some exposure is worth a lot to me. It's difficult to measure, right? Like how much return is there in just getting extra screen time, dollar for dollar, as opposed to trying to maximize the spot and winning, X amount of big blinds in the near term. So I get all of that, but the overarching theme is when you have the 50K in front of you, it's go time and you have to make money.
Sure.
Separate to that now becomes, at what point have you reached a level of locking things down, right? And that will be variable for obviously all parties involved. So I kind of want to focus on the initial starting point, because I do think that this carries over into MTTs, and I think it exposes a lot of the mistakes that the common players will make in overvaluing tournament life.
Right.
And though Nikki had her reasons, I would say that, and I don't mean to single her out, because if you watch the past history of the loose cannon on the big game, this is very commonplace, where being in that chair feels like it's more important big picture than it probably actually is.
Right.
So there's just a natural risk aversion that I think people tend to take on when they only have a single bullet at something, and death becomes the greatest fear,
right,
as opposed to winning a bunch of money being the greatest opportunity.
I think the other really interesting part of this that is, I think, kind of like underestimated with the loose cannon is, if you look at specifically the last hand that they're going to play. They play 150 hands, was it, or 100?
I can't remember if it was 150 or 250, but it's something along
I think it was
those
150.
lines. Yeah.
150
sounds correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. 250.
So let's say they're playing 150, right? The 150th hand, if you have any more than $25,001 in your stack, you have the opportunity to just basically flip for as much of it as you can on that last hand. Just be all in with basically everything, right?
Yep.
So there's a huge incentive to at least make sure that you have the opportunity to take that final hand flip for as much of it as possible, right? And then on top of that, you get this interesting aspect that if you specifically look at flipping for stacks as like something that, let's say you were able to engineer flipping for stacks, if you are at 45K on that last hand, that's a wildly asymmetric flip, because if you win the flip, you go to 90K and you pocket 40K.
Right.
If you lose it, there's no downside,
Right.
right? So I think there's a really interesting sort of part of that equation when you consider the opportunity to flip on the last hand as being something that it's almost certain that you're going to be able to find a circumstance to just be all in and flip for your stack on the last hand if you want. And therefore, let's say there's 10 hands left and you have like 30K. You might be more incentivized to fold 9 hands and take that final hand flip with the chance to just free roll for 10K or whatever,
Right.
than to actually play hands and risk going down to 24K when now you can't get above 50K no matter what.
Right.
So there's like a really interesting dynamic that occurs there.
There is the tricky aspect too of the other players in the game not being incentivized to gamble with you necessarily.
Right.
Right. So they don't have to oblige in flipping with you because it's pot limit pre. So it's not like you can just say, okay, I'm all in the dark.
Yeah,
you can't just be like,
just
I'm all in the dark, and somebody looks at any ace and they call off.
Well,
Yeah.
but then let's say you are at 30K going into the last hand. They know there's a very strong incentive for you to just be, shipping as much as you can with any two.
Right.
So even though there are obviously going to be folding ranges between a table of 6 or 7 players or whatever it is, if you just pot 100% of hands from under the gun, there's a good chance someone has a good enough hand that they just repot it and they think, I'm okay with playing for stacks against someone who's getting it in with any 2 cards, right?
Right.
So like,
True,
it's
yeah.
not a guarantee you're going to be able to get a flip for stacks, but it's probably pretty likely because someone is going to be able to say, well, I have king high and they're gambling for stacks with any 2, so like, I'm okay with this, you know?
Yeah,
So,
I would imagine this kind of stretches out a little bit further to where, like, maybe once you're inside of, I don't know, 30 hands even, you have to VPIP 100, right?
Possibly,
even if it's just like you just start limping.
That's what I would think.
You just like need to see flops and find ways to get to the no limit portion and just be all in.
Just try to flop equity and get your money in.
oh, that
Right,
might be, yeah, that might actually be better. Like, you just limp 100 for like the last 30, 40, 50 hands even, and then because it's now no limit, when you flop equity, you're just all in, and you're just hoping someone has a hand
If you wait
to
to that last hand, now you're just like you're almost handcuffing yourself to just.
It's a
that
big
last hand
parlay.
Where like if you take the last 20 hands, now you give yourself 20 different opportunities to be in a better situation.
Yeah, that's true.
It's quite funny how the structure actually sets you up for a good situation where you can actually just limp call like a bunch of hands, like whatever in the last.
It's very stand up esque.
Yeah,
right. It's your heads up for the stand up game kind of dynamic, and that's also very similar for the players around you.
Yeah,
they're basically the seeded players that are collecting the free EV,
which is your bounty.
Of you having having the VPIP a ton.
And this is how bounty events play out too. Like, this is a good chance to plug my bounty
which
course
is great
that I just
because
put out.
we actually have a link. I don't know if I sent that to you or not, Guapo, but go on, plug your course and I'll send it to
my bounty course
Guapo.
that I just made.
The last episode just came out today.
Yeah, there we go.
This morning.
Yeah. So
I actually have it if you want me to pull it.
roll it. Go ahead. That's
He's doing a course on Weekend Warrior. It's his Weekend Warrior course.
Bet
God,
the
that'd be
opposite.
amazing.
probably most important aspect of bounty events that we have to grasp is the fact that we're not just competing for one prize pool. Understanding the changing nature of risk premiums and risk discounts, the more important the bounties are in a given event, the closer we get to the point where normal realities of ICM are completely neutralized, and we have a significant incentive to continue acquiring chips even once we already have a lot of them. Being mindful of our environment, both when it comes to the stacks around us and the bounty values, is a crucial skill to develop, and I personally am very excited to put all the strategies I've learned from making this course into action. So yeah, that's how you play bounties. That's how you play bounty tournaments. No, I'm really happy I put the work in for this because it taught me a lot about how bounty tournaments work, and there's a really similar dynamic here where when you cover someone in a bounty event, quite often if the bounty values are really high, you're just doing a lot of like limp calling and trying to flop enough equity that you're able to like play for stacks against them. And because you're getting this kind of equity overlay that, or a risk discount basically, that allows you to do a lot of limping, trying to like make sure people behind you don't fold, because if they fold, you can't win their bounties. And then when they raise, you're doing a lot of limp calling and, you know, flopping a flush draw and check jamming and things like that, you know. So it sort of feels like the same sort of a thing here where you're getting a big overlay because you can only lose so much, but you can win quite a lot. And that does put you in this same situation where you have this big incentive to be, you know, trying to flop enough equity that you can just be all in the no limit portion and hopefully, you know, get that double up. So I think that's a good strategy once you get towards that later portion.
Yeah, I think coinciding with that, it's a reprogramming of how maybe initially, because you know you're there for hours, right? So the strategy consistently shifts, and like you said, very similarly to a bounty tournament, it goes. You could potentially be the covering player to being the player who's covered. So there is this ebb and flow. But I think for anybody who's going into that environment, the unique thing about the loose cannon is that you do get to prep a little bit for it. And I don't think you prep poker-wise. You prep based off of the incentives of the loose cannon. And truly, the name is in the game. You know, like you really are meant to be a loose cannon. You're meant to find ways to VPIP more than you're comfortable with, more than a winning strategy may suggest, especially once you get inside of 100 hands. And it becomes challenging then to continually flip your brain around between being risk on and risk averse. And I think that might be one of the biggest strategy adjustments that they have to overcome. So here's a great example. We spoke to Nikki about this whenever we had her on after the Loose Cannon had aired, and she basically said, like, I was so frazzled in the moment. It was such a big spot, and it was my first all-in situation, and there was so much going on. It didn't even cross my mind not to run it twice. And what ultimately ends up happening is within the final 30 hands, she's all in 3 different times where she runs it twice, all 3 times, and chops. Mm-hmm. And that kind of in and of itself is a good instance of demonstrating how we need to figure out the difference between when to accept variance versus when to be against variance. And running it twice is just a natural thing that professionals do in order to lower their overall exposure to variance in all-in situations. But in this particular spot where I think, maybe this is with, 30, 40 hands to go, Nikki's a sizable favorite. Busting out of the event at this point is pretty meaningless. She's playing a 40K pot.
Not your money.
Right, it's not your money, but scooping this pot now gets you well within striking distance for that last little bit to actually turn a profit. And that's really all. I think that's what's overlooked here, is that you're really trying to get to the final 10 hands and just be within striking distance of 50K.
It's not really part of the loose cannon strategy to start reducing variance. That's not very loose cannon of them.
Right, that's true. Now, the inverse of this is when you are up a substantial amount of money. And I think Lily kind of ran into maybe some situations like this where she's winning maybe 50K coming down the stretch. But the most clear example of all of this particular situation was in, I believe, season 1, maybe it was season 2 of the Loose Cannon, where we saw aces hit the muck pre in a situation where he was absolutely trying to fold out the rest of the session. Now, this is a little bit further into the hand, but if we come back a little bit to pre-flop, what we'll see is that the Loose Cannon actually mucks aces here. So you can see Fishman's in the small blind. It goes raise call by Jay and Phil Locke. And obviously, he has a situation where he can pot it pre and make it something in the neighborhood of 10K of what I assume is probably 150K stack, because back then they got more money and he's obviously winning. So he could commit maybe 10% of his stack at most, maybe less, maybe 7%, something like that. And they're all going to know his aces. Instead, he chooses to fold. Phil Locke flops quads, which would have cost him probably all of his profits.
All the dollars.
And he ended up walking away one of the bigger winners.
Well, he won the pass too.
I don't think he did. I think that was one of the big scrutiny. Again, don't quote me on this. But I remember talking to somebody else who paid a lot closer attention to those earlier seasons. And I think he folded because he was in line to win the pass. But if I'm not mistaken, Nadia somebody else passed him up.
Passed him for the pass.
So here's an interesting thought is I think once you get to a point where, like if you were to try to think about solving this, once you get to a point where your incentive is to only play aces, you shouldn't even play aces anymore in that format, because when you're playing a range where everyone knows exactly what hand you have, you can't make any money out of it anymore. Like you can't, if you can only pot it pre, the only thing that can happen is you're giving people a price to call where they know exactly what hand you have. And there's no way it can not be, there's no way you can price them out of it. Like if you were to be able to jam pre, you could just say jam aces, fold everything else, right? But when you can only pot it and you're in a position where you can never win anything post flop, because they know you always have aces. And you can only ever be put in positions where you bluff catch and they know you have aces and they just have to, they just fire 3 streets and force you to consider calling or folding. Like, I don't even know if he actually makes money by playing aces in that spot anyway, right? Like, it's kind of an interesting equation.
Well, define makes money, right? Because, like, over the aggregate, of course, aces is going to win at showdown.
Well, what I'm saying is if you're going to win at showdown if they just check and let you show it down.
Right, but
I just feel like the players in this environment, they know he has aces.
You're basically saying like he just like if they play according to the fact that they think he has aces, right, he should not arrive at showdown.
His incentive is to only play aces. The whole table, he knows his incentive is only to play aces.
Right.
He can only pot it pre. So he can't even jam and take down the pre-flop pot. He can only pot it, give them a price, and then they can either outflop him or just bluff him for stacks and force him to bluff catch.
If he's a strong player, what he can do though is call a lot. Like you're only risking.
That's probably better. Yeah,
it's like if he has 200,000 in front of him and he's risking 2K, he's still going to get the showdown with aces a lot and win.
I think that's better. I think actually the play there is to just call.
Yeah, you're just winning
call or fold.
You're winning a lot on the margins in that instance, because they're now going to try to run you over post, knowing that you have to be ultra conservative.
Yeah. And it like basically what it speaks to there is that when you play call, your range is no longer just aces.
Right.
That's the thing. It's the fact that when you 3-bet, you only have aces, and they know you only have aces. Yeah. Therefore, it no longer actually makes any money to 3-bet with aces.
Yeah, even opening, right? Like you'd almost be incentivized to only play limps.
Yeah, and even
then to only play limp calls. Right,
yeah.
And then to only play limp calls.
Yeah, it's like such a weird strategy, but it actually makes sense because there's no way to play profitably if your opponents know exactly what hand you have.
Right. To be fair, though, maybe to be fair is the wrong phrasing, but more so speaking to the actual risk element of it, I think that there are a lot of like very strong poker players who would weigh the upside downside in scenarios like that, and they would probably just like apply proper Kelly criteria in this situation where it's like, well, I have a post flop edge because of all these things, right? Maybe I'm a strong player and they're adjusting differently to me in this situation. So if I assume my edge to be like 15% on the margins versus the collective, and I'm currently winning 50K, well, I could probably risk like maybe a third of it in this particular spot. And now they do have a normal-ish looking 3-bet range. Like they still play the game.
Right.
They try to maximize the spot.
Just like an ICM spot.
Exactly. Precisely.
And you can also do it like if you really want to take it to another extreme, like if you get to a point where your incentive is to only play aces, if you really want to be less risk averse, you can just 3-bet the aces, have everybody know that you have aces, let them call to try to realize equity, or bluff you off, and then just not fold.
Yeah.
Or just
or
not fold,
yeah.
or just jam flops, right?
Yeah.
Like you can just like accept that sometimes you lose and just bluff catch down, and maybe you win a massive pot, and now you're up 200 and something K, right? Like if you don't care about that variance, like just do that.
Right.
But if you are gonna actually just knit it up post, you should knit it up pre even more.
Yeah. Totally agree.
It seems like the most interesting scenario would be if you're coming down to like, I don't know, 20 hands or something, and you're up, but not like you're up like not a non-significant amount, but not
like
a lot.
10K.
Yeah, like between 5 and 10K, where it's just like it's free money. You could just fold your way and take this money, but the upside risk of doubling that.
And that's kind of what I was speaking to earlier.
Right. Yeah.
The idea that if you're up a small amount, it's a wildly asymmetric flip.
Yeah. If you have 60K in front of you, you can take that 10K, or you could double it and now have
70,000 profit.
Right. You're risking 10 to win 70.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like that's kind of the asymmetric part of it that I think is really interesting.
Where does the line draw? Like how strong is your hand?
Yeah,
you have to
if you're up 20K, risking 20 to win, what would it be? Like if you're at 70, you'd be risking 20 to win 90. 20 to win 90.
Yeah.
What you do is you get all in, you're flipping, and then you just on the side say, hey, like just chop the pot. So you just get to use their money and then take half.
Yeah, no, that I doubt they would allow.
I don't think they would.
But probably not allow that.
But I do think
Scam
that
FC.
I do think that speaks to the theme of what we're trying to, like the heart of what we're trying to get to in this particular conversation, which is thinking strategically in real time and being able to recognize these situations where the upside is asymmetric compared to the downside. A lot of people, I think, in that moment, if they're winning 10, 15,000, don't think to themselves like, hey, I didn't really do much to earn this 15K, and though it means something to me, it wouldn't mean nearly as much to me as winning 70 or 80 or 90,000.
Yeah.
So why don't I just put this money to use? I can risk maybe 5 of that 15K in these last 15 hands and try to be all in.
Right.
And be okay taking the slight worst of it.
Right.
It's like if you were given the option, and I know we run through these thought experiments all the time, but I also think it's what makes us strong poker players. And more importantly, it carries off into life. Like people who don't spend time ever running through these thought experiments, I feel like are missing out on unlocking a big aspect of how to manage risk in life, right? If you think to yourself, would I pay someone, having this 15,000 profit in front of me, would I pay somebody right now $5,000 overlay to just stone flip a coin? The answer is absolutely yes.
Yeah.
Right? Like unequivocally yes. Because either you're risking the 15K either way,
Right.
and all you're doing is taking away an extra 10K of profit in order to guarantee that half the time you walk away with $70,000 profit.
Right.
You're just willing to take the worst of it.
You're paying the fee because the money that you're adding onto your stack is not your own risk.
It's a massive punt to decline that.
Yeah, right.
Massive punt.
Right. So it's like there are, and I don't think their minds gravitate that way, where it's just like there are very obvious situations where you would take a relatively significant negative EV spot because the upside is so great compared to the downside.
Right.
And that's a prime example of it. And if you start to think that way, now whenever these situations arise in game, you're locked in, and believe it or not, like shit like this does happen organically at the table. People offer good, bad deals all the time. And, there are situations where like you need to think on the fly, and a lot of people will just defer to, no, let's just play by the rules. But you might just be leaving a bunch of EV on the table.
I don't know, man. Someone told you to run it all out when you had aces and they had kings.
Listen, I was being a nice person. I will eternally take the worst of it and stay poor in order to ensure that the game survives.
So your reason for doing it is different than I'm scared to risk in this spot.
I mean, if we were in a public game where, I know that I'm taking the worst of it here as often as I'm taking the best of it, in the sense that, like, I know I could be getting scammed, right? Like,
it's hard to get scammed with aces, though. But you mean
precisely. But if I have queens, I would also accept the deal, right? So it's like I know that he's maybe getting a more fair shake than I may believe him to be. If we're in a public scenario like that and a guy truly wants to do it, I would say shove dark, I'll call.
Yeah.
Like shove dark, I'll call. I would just hold the dealer up. And I would say, if you really want to do it, put all the money in and I'll call. And, if it happened, great. If it didn't, okay, I tipped my hand and we're going to have to play out the next
now he knows
streets.
you have aces.
Yeah, and I'll live with the outcome. But in a private scenario where we're gonna play a lot of hours together, we're friendly. That's not the spirit of the game, so to speak.
Sort of, because like I think to a degree
it's just cutthroat. From my perspective.
I mean, that's only the case when you have exactly aces.
Yes, but like, because I won't accept aces, I wouldn't accept any hand. And if I accept aces, I feel that that's being very cutthroat.
Even if he said to you, like, I'm willing to run this right now, like,
correct,
you would still say, like, I don't want to do that.
Once I make the conscious decision that I won't do it with aces, I won't do it with any hand, because now I'm just taking on unnecessary risk.
Yeah.
Without the protection.
There's no added money for you.
Yeah, well, there's also no protection, right? The part of the reason to take on the risk of saying yes with queens or ace king or something along those lines is because you're protected with all the times that you get to say yes with aces. But the second that you lop off the top of this, for anybody who's not sure of the story, I told this yesterday, Hunt, I can catch you up. But basically, I open cutoff, the straddle just calls and goes, let's play a 100K pot. And I go, do you want to do it now? And he goes, yeah, let's stick in 50K each. And I have aces. And I was just like, wow. I can't do that. You seem way too confident with your hand. Let's just play the hand normally. So the board comes not great. We end up getting to the river and showing down in a 3K pot, and he has kings. And it's like, well, fuck me. Like that would have been very fortuitous.
That's funny.
Had I just said yes. But again, that's not really the point. I'm more so salty that the hand didn't just play out organically, where it's just like he 3-bets, I 4-bet, he 5-bets, I call, and
you would have played a 100K plus pot anyway.
Right.
If he didn't say that.
Right. Yeah. Instead, this weird thing occurred where he's trapping and then wants to get all the money in, and
maybe that was
I'm unwilling to accept.
Maybe he did it on purpose to
run the angle. Yeah. It's feasible.
Right.
It's definitely feasible.
Maybe sometimes he has aces here, and I don't want to stick all my money in with kings. So
balance.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. Anyway, I wanted to kind of highlight that because I do think it's important to be versatile as a player at the table and think strategically in all spots.
It's tough when it comes to how important is, call it 15K to you. If you're up 15 and someone's asking hey, do you want to pay 5 and just run a flip? Because I think everyone is aware that they should unequivocally take the money.
Well, it's
flipping.
An easy answer. Yeah, but it's an easy answer, right? Would you do it for no vig?
Of
right?
course.
Well, if you would do it with no vig, then paying 5K vig doesn't matter that much.
I guess I think people would say I have 15,000. The utility of this money is so important
Same
to me.
thing. If you flip If you flip without paying, you're still risking the 15K. So
if they don't want to risk the 15K,
then they wouldn't accept for no vig. You understand?
Yes, I get what you're saying.
So,
and that's,
I think that just becomes the answer. It's like, if you don't want to flip, period, then certainly you're not going to pay somebody to flip with you.
Right.
Agreed. No. But I think to a degree they know that they're not making the wise decision, but that money is worth so much. Like the emotional amount of dollars that is so much more money than they could potentially make to take the plus EV spot.
When that's true, though, we're dealing with something totally different, right? Now they're not going to play strategically because they have reached an amount that is so meaningful to them that they're going to lock it down.
Yeah.
That's a point where they would fold aces to protect 15K. Right. But if you're actually talking about like the EV of the ass in the chair,
maximizing,
it's to maximize, and you'd be happy to take a flip, or you'd be happy to like lay 10% equity difference and run a 55-45.
It kind of makes me feel like as soon as the loose cannons like are chosen to try to hit them up and be like, hey, I got buy some action as long as you like whatever you're comfortable with, as long as you take these flips.
Yeah, I mean that's a real thing.
Hey man, the politics market's getting me sharper.
Well, I'm just thinking like the better the loose cannon is that gets selected, the more attractive they would be to buy a piece of, but also the less likely they should be to sell a piece.
Mm-hmm. To a degree, because getting 50K free,
that's true.
It's going to change anybody's life that becomes a loose cannon.
It really is just like winning a satellite that costs you no dollars to getting into a 50K tournament.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So they're going to sell. Yeah. I mean, not they're going to, but you probably should sell.
I remember in 2012 when the first big one for one drop ran, the one Antonio won, the $1 million buy-in. Mm-hmm. They were running 100K satellites, and I was still a little bit flush at the time, and I was considering jumping in at 10K to get in the 100K. And I remember running through the proposition of my mind at like, what point would I de-risk? Like, if I won the 10K satellite to get into the 100K, would I sell any of that? I was like,
Maybe if I win the $1 million, I might risk a little bit.
Right. And then I was thinking to myself of like, well, how much would I actually sell? And it was funny because I went from like, I don't know if I would sell if I won the 10K seat to the 100K satellite, to all the way to the other extreme of like, I think I would sell for 90 cents on the dollar for the $1 million buy.
Right.
Because they were two so totally different numbers to me. Right. Like I had a couple 100,000 at the time.
Yeah.
As opposed to, a couple million.
Right.
And like 7 figures was a big achievement to unlock.
So half of it at 90 cents and take your 450K.
Yeah. I think that kind of speaks to like those thresholds also within the loose cannon, where it's like, at 15K, maybe that's a nominal amount to you. And you're just kind of like, meh, it's whatever. And then whenever you get up 50K, it's like, well, I'm certainly not going to flip for this.
Right.
Even though you could be risking 50K of your own to win 150 now.
Right. Yeah. Like you should.
That's the thing. Right. No matter what, you're always getting this big 50K overlay.
Right. Exactly.
On whatever flip that you're taking. Exactly. So like you can offer. You could really take the worst of it in a big way here because of that initial overlay that you're being afforded.
That's the loose part of the loose cannon.
You could sell your 50K stack for 45K and then just agree with the person that you're just going to just flip the shit out of everything and just try to run it up to like 300K.
Right.
And you've pocketed 45K already, so you don't care. And they're...
I mean, that's the thing, right? To a degree, with the people that get chosen as loose cannons, if they said to you, hey, we are willing to give you $30,000 right now. Mm-hmm. Are you going to take it? They're all probably going to say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's just the nature of who gets chosen
and
for these spots.
Them not being able to say yes, them not truly being able to hedge in this particular situation is what makes the show and the game itself so interesting. And like, it really does bring out the human psychology aspect of it. Like, we've been talking a little bit about this in Survivor, but when you're actually fixed and locked in to and like tied to an amount, right? Like when they're given that 50K, they have 50K,
right?
Maybe not 50K in EV if they're losing players, like they have maybe slightly less. But if they're break even or winning, their EV is 50. Like I guess you can't measure it that way because they don't get to keep the core amount. But anyway, it's some percentage of that amount, right? And it's like kind of the same thing in Survivor. It's like, okay, well, there's a couple hundred people left. You don't win this thing very often. But like right now in Theory Land, like you have 70,000 locked up. And it's like, right, but I can't touch it.
Right.
There's just like nothing I can do outside of bringing in outside investors and diversifying, you know.
Let's go, Jesse.
Right. Like liquidating some of my own personal equity. Outside of doing that, like I can't really functionally de-risk in this situation. And like that actually having to be in is what makes it so fucking great.
It's funny when it's 70,000. When it's 700,000,
you find ways.
Yeah,
you find ways.
You're gonna have to try to
hit
find
up BlackRock. You're like, bro, I got a deal for you.
They're like, nah, you used all your top 10 teams. You're cooked.
Yeah, you're out. Sorry,
but it's funny, like those like thought experiments where it's like, I can give you 50,000 now, or you can have a 5-to-1 shot to have 500,000.
Right.
It's like, what do you do?
Right.
And a lot of people just take the 50 when obviously, like, you know, it's so much pussy V to take the shot at 500K.
I'd say the only pushback I have to that is what, you know, someone's net worth is. Like,
right, of course.
50, I mean, it depends on who you're talking to.
If you have
$50,000 is life changing for
some people.
I would say slightly less concerned about current net worth and much more
what you can do with the 50.
Well, much more fixated on earning potential in general.
Yes, I mean,
how much can you actually make money?
Yeah,
versus
if you can make another 50,000 somewhere down the line, even if it requires some amount of hard work, the risk is less. Right, but like if that's an amount of money that's going to be somewhat life changing to you, then what's the difference between 50 and 500? You know, kind of the wealthier you get, at some point there's
the difference is your attitude,
right?
Like, what's the difference between 1 million and 10 million? What's the difference between 10 million and 100 million?
Right. It's like I could give you $1 billion right now, or you could flip for 10 billion.
Right.
You know, it's like I'll just take the billion. I'm good.
That's right.
At some point, there does become
it'd be really dumb.
a line of utility where it's like increasing my wealth past this point doesn't really offer me much.
That's the whole diminishing marginal returns idea.
Yeah, it's just unclear where
that line
where the
is.
top is.
Right.
Well, I think everyone's line is different. You know, like you're talking about with earning potential.
Sure. But if I said I'll give you $1 million right now, or you could flip for 10, right? You would.
I would probably flip for 10.
You would probably flip for 10. If I gave you $1 million, you have $1 million now, you can flip for 10. Right, exactly. Well, that's like, you know, and I would probably just take the $1 million myself. Like,
really interesting.
I mean, I don't know, maybe.
Wait, you're telling me we can flip a coin? Like flip a coin? Like 50-50 odds.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're going for 10 million.
No, you're an idiot. You
Every
are
time.
the only person who needs to take the million
Every
in
time.
this room. Literally, there's one person in the room that has to take the million,
50-50?
and it's you.
50-50, I'm flipping every time.
If you, I don't think you get it. If you specifically
Why?
take
It's
the
going to go
million,
to zero. You're talking
50-50,
if you specifically take the million, your earning potential goes way through the roof.
That's true.
If you flip the coin for the 10 million, you just have two negative outcomes. You're either still in the spot that you're in, or now you have $10 million and you're an asshole and didn't learn anything.
That's the Archie Care story.
That's where we're going.
Right, but like if you responsibly take $1 million, you have to look after it and make sure that you water it.
You have to care for it.
Yeah,
What
you
I
have
would
to turn it
do-
into like 1.1.
What I would do is sell action on the flip, obviously.
This is fantasy land. You don't get to do that.
Right.
kind of
You
shit.
guys are all forgetting one important thing, which is I'm the only one in this room who's married. So I'm the only one who has. There's another person who has an opinion about whether I should take the flip or take the million, right?
I mean,
but
I'm basically married.
Yeah,
so
that's
like,
true. That is true.
So you're a logical man. You could explain to her how getting 5-1 on your money.
I could, but I would still have a hard time persuading her not to take $1 million.
Yeah, I think it's funny because like I wonder where the line would be with you. So like you said, you'd probably flip, but like
Not probably. I 100% would flip.
You have to flip.
But how about if it was 10 to 100 million?
You take the 10.
It's closer.
Okay, so if it's 20, it's 20 now 20 million or 200 million. It's like
No, like there's
there's a line somewhere.
Well, there are definitely numbers where you're actually set up for life. My point in this
exactly.
example is that $1 million won't set anyone in this room up for life.
Right, of course.
Like Landon actually might be the one who benefits the most from taking the $1 million because his earning potential would be so high.
Because he's the youngest.
Get more
And he's
politics bets, baby.
And he's the youngest.
Time to put more money on politics.
He actually might be able to turn $1 million into 100, but I'm not going to turn $1 million into 100.
Yeah.
I
You wanna
might,
give me $1
I
million
might turn
and we'll find
10.
out?
What do you think is the odds on Landon eventually achieving 100 million net worth?
So low.
Sub 1%.
The thing is, I mean, I don't know if you had a $1 million liquid right now and that you could just continue to work and invest that money, that might set you up. For life.
I do.
Inflation, though.
I don't know about 100xing your money. That's
I'm going to buy 4 poker.
I have close to that, and it's like it's just sitting in cryptocurrency.
Yeah, you'll be good in a year. You'll be all right.
It's just not that easy.
I know.
In my opinion.
It depends who's president, my boy.
I understand the attraction for pretty much everybody here, myself included, to just take the free money.
Right.
But like for me, it's the easiest to turn down, not just because of my current net worth, but because I actually do gamble for.
Yeah, your earning potential is that high.
Well, I just gamble for amount. Like I've gone on $500,000 downswings like dozens of times in the last few years.
Exactly. The upside of having the 10 million and what you could do.
It's very asymmetric in this instance.
Yeah, I think the emotional pain that the rest of us would experience if we lost a $10 million flip would be less than what you would experience.
I wouldn't be gambling. Flinch.
I'd be gambling with my life, basically.
Do you want the backyard done or not?
But I guess like that's kind of where I'm coming from a utilitarian standpoint. Is I think everybody in this room largely is, I don't want to say set for life, but they're comfortable in the life that they're living, and losing that flip wouldn't harm things that much, but winning that flip would really
change your life.
It would at least 4 out of 6 of us, it would set you up for life.
Yeah.
Conrad, I don't know. Again, I think 10 million is more dangerous than 1. I truly think that like you're a nightmare with $10 million.
Are you looking at it as like the more money Conrad has, the more money he can lose?
No, 1 million is dangerous.
No, I think it's the way he acquires
if
it.
you had $10 million right now, what would you do?
Well, he'd have to sign a contract to give it to somebody that he cannot touch for the next 30 years.
No,
or at
I
least
wouldn't.
some amount of it.
Start there.
I would never do that again. I've already been there, done that.
Wait,
never do it again.
Okay.
Somebody was a custodian of your wealth.
Move on.
Yeah, I think it's the way it's acquired. Like when you gamble in that spot, particularly in a situation where like maybe you shouldn't, and you win, the money seems too free. It's like why lottery winners always go broke.
Yeah.
Like they're so far removed from having a plan of what to do with wealth that it just never actually dawns on them to
right. They go out and buy they win like $10 million. Now they buy a $5 million house. It's like you have to pay taxes, and then you have to pay taxes on that house every year, and your lifestyle. And
when you consciously make the decision not to gamble for 10 million and you accept the 1 million, it feels more earned.
Yeah.
And I think you would have to like care after because like you clearly passed on opportunity.
Right. So you better not fuck this.
And
up.
a plus EV wanted that, right? To effectively de-risk and hedge and take the comfortable route, which I think psychologically, I think plays on people where it's like, okay, like this is my nest egg. That's why I said yes to this.
Man, it really is like full circle with loose cannon strategy. Something that the people that get chosen should spend a lot of time with somebody working out. Like what their risk tolerance is, how comfortable they are with these things, how they should play pre-flop and post-flop, when they should just play like huge jam all in because they're getting such a good price that they get called.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of actual dollars to be made as the loose cannon in this spot, but it does take a ton of work and the ability to kind of turn off your brain to an extent of like how much money are you being given versus how much you can actually make. And if that's an issue, you should sell some.
Yeah, I think
to said person that's helping you.
I think the scariest version of this is like a loose cannon who only plays like Geostrat, where it's just like they VPIP like 40 or 50%, and the only time they actually put money in pots is like 150% pot. Because it's like, you know what I mean? Like either you're just gonna like sacrifice a bunch of pots to them, or you're gonna be like, this motherfucker's gambling. I'm gonna gamble right back, and the next thing you know, he's up 250K.
It's the limp 2/3 of the deck.
Yeah.
Geostrat.
Yes, precisely.
Just like limp, go 6 ways to a flop.
Right. 6x pot, 6x pot, 6x pot.
Like you get called and like you're just like bluffing with like a pair or some draw. Like sometimes that you spike it.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And they're
you got the backdoor trip draw and it's just like, fuck you.
I feel like when you're the loose cannon, bottom pair is like one of your best hands to just go off with, because when you do make the bottom pair trip draw, it has even more value in this case. And you got the blocking power.
It's true. It's crazy as it sounds. Giving like a well-established pro the opportunity to be the loose cannon actually might be the most entertaining version of this.
I'll show you how to run a 500 50K to 500 or zero.
Yeah, it's just
Amen.
like you want to see more people play like me and Alan Keating. Give them $50,000 free and like the knowledge of how to play a robust portion of the deck, and watch and see what fucking happens.
Yeah,
right. It's funny because that's the loose cannon would be that pro where if people are getting chosen based off of like the once in a lifetime opportunity, they are going to treat it like giving up that $10 million flip and care for it and nurture it and like get that money in as good as they possibly can because it's the only chance they're going to get.
I think the production appreciates that though, right?
Yeah.
Because I think the storyline is the opportunity itself.
Right.
And when you see them nurture it like a baby chicken that's so fragile that they don't want to have it get hurt by the world, I think that creates a bit of a viewer's experience.
There was one loose cannon. I think his name was Max. I'm sure you can find some footage, Guapo. But like this guy played like a rocket man.
Yeah.
He was like a loose cannon, got 50K and like ran it up to 150, like check raising everywhere, like going hard free. Italian bro. Yeah. He was cooking.
That's what they want. You're right. That's what they want.
Like, and you look back at the highlights, like, oh, like this guy really went for it back then when people assumed that the loose cannon was actually going to be the tight cannon. Right, because that's just, there he is.
Yeah, there he goes.
Yeah, this guy doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah, like he bet 15, Helmuth raised, and he said, I have a 10 and a 9. What do you have?
Right. Oh, man, it's so incredible.
Yeah, this is...
Look at Helmuth. I can't believe he went for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got good properties.
Yeah.
Like he was
Wrong guy to bluff.
What happened was he was playing so many hands and going so hard that Helmuth was like, he's playing too many hands. Like he kind of broke him, and then he.
That's the best.
Oh man, that's so good.
Like, there's so many
down to him.
Who was that was doing
Phil
it?
Lock.
I was Phil Lock.
Yeah.
But like that's what makes it so cool versus seeing someone to a degree like wait for really good hands and then like 3-bet and then it's like, oh, of course the loose cannon has aces or kings or whatever.
Right.
So I mean, I do think it's good to get both perspectives, but one of them makes more money by far.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously that's
Maybe they
that's
should
really
do
the case.
one episode a season where they get a pro in and it's for charity.
Oh.
And they give them 50K and whatever they win is for a charity of their choice. It's actually a pro. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
AKA give Bill Klein a seat.
There you go.
I mean, he should be in that game anyway.
Yeah,
he should just
of course.
be
I think
in the lineup.
I
But
think
no, you need two pros because Bill Klein always gives the charity, and then you get someone else that's going to put money in, so it's double
think,
charity.
I think he recently stopped playing stream games. If I recall, he said something about getting a lot more busy with his work and stuff like that. But yeah, I agree. He's a legend. Yeah. Let's wrap this up a little bit by shifting gears towards the progressive Squid game. So recently, Triton ran a cash game series that was fucking awesome to watch. They were playing nosebleeds. I think they were playing, correct me if I'm wrong, Guap, 2-4.
That's correct.
And then it became like 2-4-8, 12.
Yeah, it moved around a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of straddling taking place. Very, ultimately kind of a shallowish game when it's all said and done. But again, that's, in my opinion, the nature of progressive Squid. We have a hand to take a look at where I think it just demonstrates the absurdity of what Squid does to things. This ends up being an all-in pre. Again, the blinds were, I think, 300, 500 here. And they just put in 150K pre, just 300 bigs.
I have a 50-50 shot here. I wasn't sure if it was Squid 1 or Squid 2.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, so the blinds are 500, 500. And yeah, we're just going to see.
Players are incentivized to play defense.
This is it, yeah.
Victor.
We can listen to the rest.
Oh my goodness. Victor has a playable one. I mean, I think you just ship it here.
Yeah, that's exactly what he does with 124,000.
I don't know if you're Victor here. It's probably kind of close. 3-2. You owe the triple guy 6 times a multiplier. I mean, you owe that one person 12K.
No. But Andy also you owe 12K because he'll be picking up his third.
So that's
24 right there between him and Tan.
So you're calling like 110 to win 155. If you lose the pot, you owe 30K more. So if you fold, you just owe 30K.
Yeah.
Probably a call, actually. Oh, but if you call and lose, you still owe 30K.
Right. Victor jamming over the top of Andy, trying to ensure that Elton bows out. Malinowski gets what he intended to, which is a heads-up collision with Andy. We're going to run it twice, but this first one is for the Squid. 10 outs. Oh. And there's the 9-burger. Victor can get behind it.
Victor's like, and that's how you play the Squid game, guys.
10-8-5. A pair. Once more Malinowski. best case scenario, suddenly the ace-queen looking to repay the favor.
It's Victor's time.
265K pot hauled in. He defends on behalf of the honor of the field against Andy.
That always feels
picking
good
up
when
a
you
third,
like
and
almost
he
fold
staves
and then
off
you
a
don't fold
payout
and you just
himself.
I'm ready for 8 hours of this today.
Oh my
This
God.
is not going to get old.
So one of the best, I think one of the best takeaways from this cash game series is hearing Rast decipher the proper
Explain,
strategy
right.
in real time. Like he had never played it before.
Yeah.
We
So-
actually had a lot of comments in the chat about that, how much they appreciated like all the dynamics behind why people's decision making was structured in a certain way.
Right, because it looks foreign. If you were to just put this footage up with no commentary,
Yeah, you'd be like, what the hell's he doing?
no commentary, no graphics delineating that it's Squid Game or that there's some sort of bounty or anything like that. You just put it up, right? You let this fly on the internet the way we let season 1 of Poker Out Loud just fly without really telling anybody the
You would think it was
dynamics
the
behind
last hand of loose cannon.
Well, what ends up happening is the internet screams, "This isn't poker. These
Right.
guys all suck."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, show me my 2-blind game that I'm accustomed to playing at the casino. And what this highlights to me is that incentives are always driven by money, right? So at the end of the day, every decision we make is very much driven by the EV. And you heard Ras kind of like roughly calculate it there in real time, where it's like, okay, well, if he folds, he's passing on the 15,000 that he's already risked, which, by the way, that's also somewhat sharp. I don't know if you guys caught that, but he's heads up in the Squid Game. He has 9-8 suited. Blinds are 500, 500. He just opens the 15,000, which is half of the bounty. So basically, if no one behind him picks up a hand, the only person who is forced to truly defend is the other guy who's heads up for the bounty.
Right.
And Victor will take his hand 9-8 suited versus a random other bounty hand any day of the week.
Yeah.
So you open large, which in this instance is 30 big blinds, quite large. Is it 30 or? Wait,
Yeah, 30.
Yeah, 30. Okay. I wanted to make sure I wasn't misplacing zeros here. So 30 big blinds. Now he gets jammed on behind for 300 big blinds. It's like, well, fuck me. What have we done here? And you heard Ras kind of run through the calculation. It's like, okay, you've already risked 30 big blinds, and then you have another 60 big blinds at risk if you fold that you auto have to pay.
Right.
So this is going to be a 100 or 90 big blind penalty to you if you just muck right now. So minus 90 big blinds. If you call, you run your equity, and you basically win the pot maybe 40% of the time, something along those lines. So your expectation is to drag back 40% of like a 300K pot. So you're looking at like 120K in EV there, which is still going to yield you a 30K loss, right? Or you call and you lose, which now effectively is going to yield you a 180K loss.
Right.
And trying to calculate all of those EVs in real time is really hard.
Yeah.
So it's like just folding minus 45K, calling and winning, like calling and winning the Squid aspect of it, I guess, is like basically breaking even. Calling and losing and having to pay it all minus 180K. And it's just like none of this seems, well, sorry, it's not minus 180K. It's minus 180K the frequency at which you lose. Which is 60% of the time, so 60% of 180K. So like maybe 100K net loss. And it's like trying to decipher all of this in real time. It's like so am I making more than 65,000? The delta between just folding now and calling and losing. Am I making at least that much in return by calling? And he just susses out in real time, like, yeah, I think I am. And in this particular example, where he's against exactly ace queen or unpaired hands. Or pairs less than the 8, that probably remains true. Like it probably is a good call. But man, strategically on its face, does not look reasonable at all. And I think again, this goes back to the bounty thing that Hunt was talking about, right? Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure there are just going to be scenarios where like you limp a hand like 9-8 suited, somebody rips it for 45. You're the covering stack, and they have a massive bounty on their head. You just shrug and call.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's like crazy spots like that come up.
It happened to you in the series, right? You got it in 6-7 suited.
Against Ryan Reeser, like he has this. We're playing a 5K buy-in. He has a 10K bounty on his head because he's a main event winner, and he 3-bets me with ace king, and I just have to get in with like 7-6 of diamonds for infinite big blinds, because a 10K, like, I can win 2 buy-ins in level 1 of a tournament. You know? It's like a massive bounty. So yeah, it just bounties and Squid Game and everything, they changed the dynamics a ton for sure.
Yeah, and I think going along those lines of like how those dynamics change and what we can do to adjust in real time is figuring out shortcuts in order to estimate EV in real time. Being able to measure upside downside risk in real time. Like, you heard Rast's thought process there. It's very difficult to get an exact number, but like you could just start to guesstimate it and just be like, okay, well, if I'm flipping here or I'm near flipping here, am I ever losing more than the 45K that I'm sacrificing by just folding here? And it's like, probably not. It's really hard to.
Yeah.
It's just really hard in a 300K pot to be losing greater than 15% anytime that you're going to be playing this all in scenario. So, you're forced to take on gambles.
That's what makes these games so expensive.
Yes.
Right? Like in your case, when you guys play progressive Squid and all that stuff, is the game gets really, really high, and you need a lot of money to comfortably play this game.
Correct.
Because the comfortable decision is just sticking in a bunch of money as a dog.
Right. And to that point, it also, ironically, greatly reduces win rate, because this hand never plays out organically anymore.
You have to be all in.
Yeah, like 9 high loses its efficacy because it's not.
You have 9 high.
Right. It's not a part of a complete range that gets to play over the course of 3 streets.
Right.
It's 9 high.
It's just 9 high that has to run it.
In this situation with this current overlay, where if you lose this pot, which you mostly will because you have 9 high, you must pay more money and lose a big pot.
Yes.
Right. Whatever win rate Limitless is capturing from this spot, it's coming from the fact that he knows he's supposed to open 30x and call it off with 9-8 suited, and not do what somebody else might do, which is open, 5x and like find a fold or something like that.
Like he did that to price himself in, and then if you price stuff in and then fold, now you're torching.
Right. And I didn't see the full stack distribution, but like they were probably 2 of the bigger stacks, where a lot of the other people were probably at like 50K. Where it's just like, this is now a no-brainer because you're only 3xing my raise.
That's no limit, baby.
It's a bit like playing short stacked in tournaments, where your win rate doesn't come from like some kind of post-flop skill. It comes from understanding when are the spots you're supposed to just run your equity.
Right.
Like, when are you supposed to get it all in?
Like pick up the blind.
Right. And missing an all-in at short stacks costs you a ton of EV. There are plenty of spots where you can have like 7 bigs and you can miss an all-in that would win you like half a big blind of profit, and that's like crippling your win rate.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're all but like increasing your stack by 10%, 15%, something like that. I think that going all the way back to the original question that Conrad asked at the beginning of the show, will we ever see, or maybe Laman asked this, will we ever see it settle on a specific derivative? I think it's just going to be ever changing, and I think people will get kind of like more aware of like what's happening. There's a reason short deck never took off.
Yeah.
The variance was just too high. Nobody showed a discernible edge, and it just became flipping coins, right? It became annoying to recreational specifically when they're playing a game where no matter how deep they sit, somebody's jam, like the button is just always jamming.
Yeah.
Unless it's like, I guess, PLO to a degree, because you kind of sign up for that stuff when you're playing with 4 cards.
Well, PLO, I mean, honestly, it's been the next coming of the poker boom has been PLO for 25 years.
Yeah.
And it just hasn't really captured the audience the way people expected it to. Yes, there's more gamble involved. Yes, recreationals have a little bit more of a sporting chance.
It has gotten bigger.
It's going to flip Hold'em when Ethereum flips Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah. I don't know that the pool of PLO overall has gotten bigger. I think that
like there's more opportunity for MTTs now.
Barely.
I mean, they're able to play full schedules a lot more.
I think the PLO people are pretty happy with the way things have gone.
Yeah, but if you look at the ratio of PLO to MT or to no limit Hold'em MTTs, it's still just about the same. It's still probably like 15-1.
It is, but you do have like PokerGo runs like PLO series now. Like there's more mid to high stakes.
At the high stakes, you'll certainly always see more opportunities and options. It's the same thing with mixed. Like you just don't see mixed game series running anywhere unless they're 10K and above.
And it's the World Series.
But that's also a byproduct of it not being popular. Like things that are not popular have a very high barrier of entry cost wise, right? There's still short deck tournaments, but you're not going to find one less than 10K. You know, I'm sure you're just never going to see a $1,500 short deck.
And there was a time when you could.
Right. Yes.
I played one. I played a $300 short deck at the win, and I final tabled it. And they never ran them after that.
Right.
Like they ran a couple, and it was relatively successful. But short deck really just nosedived in popularity after a while.
I genuinely think it is attributed to the variance. When the variance is incredibly high for the game, the skill edge is really only afforded to the pros, and it's low.
Yeah.
So there isn't a whole lot of incentive. I think like double board bomb pot tournaments are a good example. Currently, they're being tested out all over the place. Bellagio runs a daily $200 one.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't do great. Nikki won it once. Shout out to Nikki.
I think Nikki won one.
Yeah. She was so happy. I like walked in and she was winning it. She was so pumped.
A double board bomb pot tournament, like everything is double board bomb
Double board
pots.
bomb pot.
So like, didn't they run that at the series and it wasn't every hand?
Mix.
It was different,
mix
right?
of Hold'em and then double board PLO bomb pots.
Correct.
Okay,
It was
yeah.
regular Hold'em tournament, and then every orbit was a double board PLO bomb
Right,
pot.
right. I think people signed up thinking that every hand would be a double board bomb pot. and
That's what I
just-
thought, and I chose not to play it when I figured that wasn't the case.
Right.
Like, I went to play something else instead.
Rightfully so. So yeah, I think that's the current iteration where it's testing. And I think that there's a chance it could take off. I think Mystery Bounties is a good example of a format that did take off.
Right.
That's not going anywhere.
No.
It's very clearly popular.
Yes.
The variance added to the format is welcomed. And again, that's a very prime example of having to do a lot of thinking on the fly. You have to sit there and constantly calculate what the actual bounty pool is as mystery bounties are being pulled out, and figure out like when ICM becomes more important than the bounty aspect, and vice versa. It's a lot of fun. This is what we sign up for, I think. Like it's about creating a logical framework of thought and being able to strategically navigate things in a fun kind of way, because what you're acknowledging is that you're signing up to gamble, but you're trying to do so with a slight edge. You're a blackjack counter, you know, and these are the new formats where it's like they offer you a plus count. So, you know, you find ways to kind of intermingle and navigate as best you can. I don't know. I find all that stuff to be interesting. I suspect that your new course on bounty tournaments in general will touch on a lot of these elements.
Yeah, definitely.
Not just, the precision per structure, but also like the framework of thought necessary to get your mind there. So much of it is formulated around risk. And so much of the reason why we crave these new structures is because we get bored with the everyday risk in the structure we've been playing for decades.
Yeah.
When you just play two blind, no limit hold'em, the risk is just inherent and we understand it. You know, variance isn't really a mystery anymore. We recognize the classic flip. We know that we're going to win half the time. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like old hat. So we find new ways to spice it up a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, get a little lingerie in the bedroom every now and again.
Oh.
Throw in a double board bomb pot.
As Patrick calls it, red
spicy.
panty night.
Yeah, that's right. Red panty night. We're playing all bomb pots, baby.
Yo, Patrick's fucking IG is on fire right now.
Right now?
Right now.
It's over.
He's in, no, what?
Scoop is over. Or W Coop's over.
He's in Cyprus? Cyprus right now, and apparently is like
EPT Cyprus has just begun, my boy.
This shit
I
popping
thought it
off
was
over
December.
there.
Nah, EPT Cyprus is right now.
Oh, Prague is December.
Cyprus is
He
right
basically posted something. He posted a bunch of shit, but one of them is a hand history where the button jams. Small blind looks at pads in the big blind, and he's like, "How much do you have?" And he's like, "I'm all in." Small blind looks at pads and says, "Man, I'm happy you folded." Mucks his hand, and the button's like, "I'm all in."
Oh no!
Small blind's out of the tournament with like 16 left or something.
What?
Oh my god!
Insanity.
Wow.
Bunch of shit.
That's wild.
He has some fun stories going on right now.
That's crazy.
Is he still power jamming every hour on the hour?
He's going to be power jamming the rest of his life.
I've seen a couple of them.
Tries to get one power jam in an hour. I respect that. I too like to be all in.
It keeps the blood flowing.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, gets the blood flowing.
Gets the people going.
That's what red panty night's for, right?
That's right. All right, let's get out of here. Thank you guys so much for following along. As always, if you haven't, please click that bell, like, subscribe, leave us a comment. Let us know what you think about some of these strategies that we've been talking
winner
about.
Is announced tomorrow. Is that correct?
The winner will be announced tomorrow live on air. Plan is to be here at noon Pacific. We'll be calling the winner live on air. So be sure to stay by your phone if you think you got the answer correct. There are a lot of spoilers in the thread on Twitter. So if you haven't given it a go just yet, go ahead. I haven't checked to see if anybody answered it correctly. My guess is somebody did, but we'll see tomorrow. That's going to do it for us. We'll see you guys all noon Pacific tomorrow.
Later, squad.
Peace.